Well, hello again, and welcome to the 2012fad.com. I will be your host for this evening. My name is Charlie Bluehawk. Last night, we talked about We Are at War, Japan, and how the U.S. government has, yet again, used their HAARP weapon against an innocent country whose only crime is that they are trying to do the best for their people, to have a stable, healthy economy, completely independent from Western bankers and their horrors, and a country that refuses to use Western vaccines that are filled with, well, for lack of a better word, sewage. Formaldehyde, aspartame, mercury, and really for what all the world looks like raw sewage, and injecting it into their people. And of course, for all these crimes, our masters, the moron masters, use their HAARP weapon again, and have now set up a chain of events that they cannot predict and that they cannot control. Tonight, I thought we would follow this rather unhappy theme and chat about cooked whale. I wrote about the CIA war against man in my books, Coffee and Blood, Love Letters Between the Dead, available now at coffeeandblood.com and at amazon.com, and that, of course, is our plug for the day. And, of course, as you know, all that money goes to the building of the village. And in those books, I talked about everything, about how everything that the CIA does is based in black magic, which is the basis of their religion, which is Satan worship. Which gets us back to the HAARP system of weapon stations that now cover the earth. And we all know what they're going to be using those for. They're going to burn us all alive in a sacrifice to their god Satan, calling her back to sit on the throne of earth, at which point their plan is to reach up, throw their god down, and to take her place, and to make war against, the universe. Again, gets us back to, I don't think there's a lot in common between us and our masters, and not really going to have a sit-down coffee and solve the problems of the world together. Anyway, these HAARP systems, these stations, they're now all over the world, broadcast high energy waves with tremendous power levels. I mean, what they're doing now is they're microwaving the various tectonic plates of the earth, heating them up, which cause them to expand, which cause them to fracture, which cause them to press against other plates, which cause those plates to move, which of course causes earthquakes. There's a lot more, scientific-y sounding things than that, but that's the basic principle. And again, please don't believe anything I say. Just look all this up for yourselves. Sadly, I would say look for any references to whales beaching themselves before an earthquake, as they did in New Zealand a few months ago, and as they did in Japan just prior to these latest atrocities. Then look for references of the whales being burned. Now you wonder how a whale living in the deep ocean, where it's kind of cold all the time, can be burned. Or how can an animal that is very intelligent, very fast, can be burned while swimming in that very cold ocean? Now, you'd think that any animal born and raised and living their entire lives in the ocean would know to avoid any natural hot water vents. So, how do whales get burned? The same way you and I are burned every day from our cell phones. Of course, you'd have to increase the power of your cell phone several hundred times in order to leave visible burns on your skin, on your body. So, how big a cell phone do you think you would need to burn a whale? How big a cell phone do you think you would need to burn a whole lot of whales? How big a cell phone do you think you would need to burn a whale, a whole lot of whales, in the deep ocean? You'd probably need a cell phone big enough that would actually melt rock, heat rock, vibrate rock until it turned soft, began to expand, began to fracture. So, and I'm guessing that if you have, anything that got in the way of a really big cell phone, say a cell phone transmitter, as it's focusing its energy on various tectonic plates, vibrating them, heating them, causing them to expand, fracturing them against each other, I'm guessing anything that got in the way of those death rays would get cooked. And so you have burned whales. Well, actually, if you bother to check, I'm sorry to say that you do not have burned whales. You have cooked whale. So how does HAARP work? Well, it's pretty simple. You aim a lot of energy up into the sky at our ionosphere, and then you cause that high energy wave, that beam, to bounce. And it bounces back and strikes the surface of the Earth. You can help this effect along by putting metal particles into the fuel of international jetliners. Now those metal particles, barium for example, will stay up in the upper atmosphere for quite a long time, and they will help to reflect the high energy waves back down so they'll hit the Earth. Yeah, you wonder what that would accomplish. Well, weather control, for one thing. Heat the Earth in one place causes winds to blow in a different direction. I actually remember one massive storm in Central America about 20 years ago now, where the hurricane actually passed over the same part of Central America 3 times. It went from the Pacific side to the Caribbean side, back to the Pacific side, and finally back to the Caribbean side. And always passed over the exact same land. Now, you know me, I can't even balance my checkbook, but I would guess and say that the odds of that against happening in nature are beyond, any kind of mathematical calculation. Oh, by the way, these HAARP systems are also causing the holes in the ozone layer in strangely enough, the North and South Poles. The North and South Poles are where, of course, the Earth is basically attached to the rest of the universe. It's sort of like the contact points. Strange how the holes would develop there. So how about HAARP and mind control? You and I are energy broadcasting and receiving stations, we know that. Our bodies produce and receive frequencies, just like two-way radios do. And did you know that when we're happy, our bodies vibrate at a certain frequency, and different parts of our bodies vibrate at a certain frequency? When we're sad, our bodies vibrate at yet a different frequency. And when we're terrified, our bodies vibrate at yet another frequency. So let's say you're very clever, and you can figure out a way, you can figure out what a person's individual frequency is, because your frequency is different than my frequency. We're sort of like the differences on your radio dial between 100.1 and 99.9 FM. You can still find us with a radio, but each of our frequencies is different. So let's say you're that really clever 1 in a trillion servants of the masters, and you figure out how to identify a person's individual frequency. You can kill them. An example for you. Let's say you're tuning up your death ray, your HAARP weapon. And you now have to adjust for the presence of a very large magnetic source that is just now entering the plane of our solar system. Let's say it's a dead brown dwarf star, and it has 3 companion planets. And because of this interference, you're having trouble focusing your weapon, your death ray, and it's bouncing around a lot. All of a sudden, birds are falling dead out of the sky. Fish are dying by the millions. Cattle are falling over dead. Oops, wrong frequency. And and I'm sorry, you can look this up as well. Our masters are working on learning the exact frequency that we vibrate at when we're on drugs, illegal or otherwise. Can you imagine what our masters would achieve if they could broadcast the exact same frequency at us, you and me? They could actually induce a drug-like state in us just by broadcasting the correct frequency at us. And that'll save our masters the problem of having to overthrow foreign governments, foreign powers, and stealing their poppy fields, which is the one reason why we're in Afghanistan, that and the pipelines. We're in Afghanistan to make sure that the drugs keep flowing. I mean, If you can, with a central transmitter in, say, downtown New York, broadcast the frequency of a human body on drugs, suddenly everyone's stoned. But again, sadly, our masters are just not very smart, and their servants are not top flight. And so you have morons working for morons, humans who graduated in the lower 90% of their class. And they're using massively horrifying, powerful weapons that they don't really understand, and they really can't control. So, look up burned whales on the internet, and you will know where the next major earthquake will occur, the next major attack. And you got maybe 3 days to run for it. That is, of course, if they're actually attacking that spot. Since the unprovoked attack on Japan with a earthquake-making weapon, and Japan is on the Pacific Rim of Fire, also something very good to look up, the Pacific Rim of Fire, you will know a problem. Because now they've started something they cannot predict and they cannot control. So even if you find burned whales, that's where an attack's going to happen. But burned whales elsewhere probably won't show up, because this is just an after effect of the weapon being used. But if you do see reports of burned whales, you got about 3 days to run for it. So keep a sharp eye on that, on their news reports. And of course, you won't get that from mainstream news, so just forget it. In the meantime, as you know, we have a plan. It's called The Village, and I've been designing and redesigning the village now for 40 years. Each time our masters have a change in their plans, I redesign the village to compensate for it. So if you want to join us, send us an email. But best not to wait too long. Before the attack on Japan, we had years. Now, we might have moments. For all of us here at the2012fad.com, this is Charlie Bluehawk, wishing you a really good day and reminding you, please keep at least one good thought. The 2012 Fad is brought to you by Coffee and Blood, Love Letters Between the Dead, a series of 5 erotica horror novels about a fallen angel finding his way back to regain his own soul, and how the CIA war against the human race. Their black magic captures and traps him in the body of a mind-controlled slave designed to hunt down and to kill their god, their Satan.